So next match we're playing against Punishing Waterfalls. I'm gonna put the deck list on the screen. I'm just gonna go and fill up my water again. I will be right back quickly. Alright. So this round we're playing against Snow Control. Pretty standard Snow Control list, I think. They have a carpet in the main deck, which is pretty standard now. Overall, I think I'm pretty happy with this matchup. It leans a lot more on field than Dark Depths, obviously. And the Valkyrie explorations do a lot of work. But overall, reasonably happy. So, jumping into game one. So, we lost the dice roll, which is unfortunate, as always. And then we have this hand. Opponent keeps 7. This hand's just incredibly slow. It's very reliant on making a 20/20 being good enough, and that's just not the case against Snow Miracles. Like, them having access to 4 Swords to Plowshares, think that makes this hand just unkeepable. So, a mulligan to this. This looks a lot better to me. You have double Ohm with an Exploration. Tabernacle's not really doing anything, so it's a free card to put to the bottom. So I'm going to keep this and get rid of the Tabernacle. Opponent fetches and casts a Ponder, that's fine. So we're just going to jam our Exploration. They don't have days, so there's no point in playing around it. Just have to jam this into a force. If they force it, it's not great for us. But thankfully they didn't, which is good. Get to play the port and pass. Opponent then brainstorms, which is pretty interesting to me. And they play a tapped Mystic Sanctuary, which is a big warning sign to me that they don't have another land. Or if they do, they really need all of their lands. So we're definitely porting them in their upkeep. And we're just supposed to put a loam into the bin. Our opponent gains 1, but that's pretty irrelevant. We want to just start dredging. So we're gonna port them. They ponder, which is fine. They shuffled with the ponder. Obviously, they knew one of the cards with the brainstorm. And then they played a Misty. So we're gonna dredge. We hit Thespian Stage Tiger. So obviously we're gonna get both of those back. Opponent's gonna fetch for a drop. They're gonna brainstorm, looking for a counterspell, I guess. Then Loam resolves, we're going to play out both of our lands, and then we're just going to port them again. Interesting that they chose to get Misty rather than a Tundra. It's possible they could have got Tundra to look to play Teferi. They found another land anyway, which is pretty good for them. Get a Tundra, and I think they make a Teferi, yeah. I bounce Exploration. Still just going to dredge here. So we dredge into Ghost Quarter Wasteland. Ghost Quarter is not great because they have like 7 basics in their list. But This wasteland's going to be pretty good. So cast Exploration, which resolves, cast Loam, which they have the Force for. Thankfully we have the backup Loam. Mistapped the Grove. Leaving open the port, because we can play 2 lands. Yeah, so we can play the 2 lands. We get to waste away one of their non-blue coloured sources, and then port the other one. Next turn get back to waste, and just lock them out of the game there. So opponent decides that that's enough. So going back to their deck list. Sideboarding, they could bring in a Relics. I think it's reasonable for them to bring in Relic. Something to keep in mind. They're definitely going to bring in Surgical, potentially Engineered Explosives, but I don't think it's amazing. Veil doesn't do anything. Null Rod's not great. Wilt's okay. I would expect them to have Wilt. And potentially Dromoka's Command, which is a surprising card to see on their list. Main card is back to basics. So obviously we have to bring in our Force of Vigors, because otherwise we can't beat this card. So game 2. Move this back over here. So we sideboard quite heavily. Or I like to sideboard quite heavily in this matchup. The only cards remaining in my sideboard from originally are Null Rod and one of the Force of Vigors. There's an argument to bring in the other one, but I'm just cutting so many cards at that point. I'm not the biggest fan of keeping Crop against the Force of Will decks if I can help it, especially against Snow, because against something like Delver, your lands are so impactful. Snow, you do need to find the Field of the Deads, but I don't think it's too bad cutting all of them. You still have the Reclaimers. Maybe if I didn't have 2 Reclaimers, I would keep in some number of Crops. Cut a Punishing Fire. We want to still have Summon to try and pressure Planeswalkers, or if they have a Mentor, or an Ice Fang, or something like that. Cut an Exploration. Again, this matchup's not all about speed. Exploration's obviously very good, but I was happy cutting one. Cut one Loam because they have some Surgicals. I think that's reasonable as well. Trimmer Mox. Again, it's not all about speed, and Mox is also really bad against Teferi. So again, I don't mind cutting one of those. Ghost Quarter, they have a bunch of basics. Maze of Ith, just not great against them. They're not an aggressive deck. They're going to be aggressively fetching their basics, I think. So cutting a Wasteland's okay, and Tabernacle obviously doesn't do too much. It prevents a Mentor from getting super out of control, but they could also just pay for like 3 monks and that'd be enough to kill us. So I don't think Tabernacle's good enough. So we're on the draw. This hand, we have a Reclaimer, Library, Loam. Like we just have a lot of engine cards, and we also have Sphere, which I think is pretty important in this matchup. Because we're bringing in the 4 Spheres, we're bringing in the 2 Trackers, 2 Force of Vigors, 3 Chokes, 2 Red Blasts. So we've got a lot of good cards. And Sphere just slows them down so much. So here our opponent fetches for a basic island and plays Relic, which is fine. It's kind of annoying for our Loam. So I'm going to go Grove into Exploration, which is going to go, it's going to resolve. And then we get to play this Elvish Reclaimer as well. Obviously now we kind of just want to draw a land next turn. Opponent fetches for a green and unsummons our Reclaimer, which is kind of interesting to me. I guess it makes some sense. So we drew Windswept Heath, which normally would be an insane draw, but they do have this Relic. It's still a good draw, obviously. So we're going to play this and crack it for a Forest, play Reclaimer, and then play this Sphere out. And try and just really tax them under this Sphere. They get rid of our land, and they fetch. And then unsummon our Reclaimer again. Which is, again, pretty interesting to me. We drew a land, thankfully. We want to just keep developing our mana as much as we can. And then I just want to make Sylvan Library, because I want to just get as many cards into my hand and try and find more lands as quickly as possible. And Loam's just not going to do that against this Relic. I could make the Valka Exploration, but I think it's better to make Sylvan Library this turn. Our opponent then casts back to basics, which is a little bit troubling, but we did manage to resolve this library first. So I decided to keep one and put back the Exploration. I do want to just draw cards to try and get out from under this library. but I don't want to draw excess cards because my life total isn't. It's not free. And here I decide that making the Reclaimer is going to be slightly better for me than keeping this Grove untapped, which is potentially a mistake. But I think it's good to. Like, I think my game plan at this point is just to try and get to Field of the Dead, and Reclaimer obviously finds me Field of the Dead. So, with this library, we see these cards, which is okay. It's a little bit awkward. But we're going to put back the Exploration and keep the other cards. And then we're just going to cast Mox, because we need to have untapped mana, effectively. Like, the Sphere hurting us a little bit there, but I think it's reasonable still. Our opponent makes their own Sylvan Library. I guess I can hide this now. And then with our Sylvan Library... Oh, clicking the wrong button. So we're going to use it. We find Wasteland and Dark Depths. So there's 2 lands. We definitely want to keep both the lands, I think. So I think we're happy going to 7. Again, leaving this Exploration on top and just drawing both the lands. And we get to make both of these. I decided not to make the Dark Depths. Not sure. Is it because I want to? No, I'm not sure why I didn't play the Dark Depths there. I think I should just be playing all of my lands where possible. My opponent then sacks their relic to draw a card. I think I definitely should have made this Dark Depths, because if I find 2 more lands off of this, I can keep both the lands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think I should have made it, because it allows me to make 2 zombies next turn if I find the right cards. Like, I do get to reset this library as well with the Reclaimer. Opponent kept 2 cards, which is kind of scary. They play a land and pass. So we're going to use Reclaimer and sack one of the Groves to go and get Field of the Dead. Because that's the only card that really matters, or one of the only cards that really matters at this point. So we draw a Reclaimer, and then we draw a Force of Vigor and Choke with the library. Force of Vigor is obviously going to be very good if it resolves, but there's a very good chance it doesn't resolve. Our opponent has a lot of mana. They haven't really done anything with their mana either. They are representing making Brazen Borrower end of turn, which is somewhat scary. And it's also a real worry that we won't be able to race these Reclaimers, or these Brazen Borrowers. Because our Reclaimer's so small, we can't really afford to keep a card with this library, which is not great. Really wanted to find some lands. Because now we can't even make a zombie. We make the Dark Depths. We keep the Force of Vigor and put the other 2 back. We make Dark Depths. And attack. Or not attack. I guess. I can't remember why I didn't attack. Oh, it's just because I wanted to reset the library, I guess. Because I just really need to find lands. My opponent makes a Brazen Borrower, which is difficult for me to beat. Then we're just going to cast this Force of Vigor. Hope it resolves, but our opponent has a counterspell. Which is really bad for us, because now I don't think we could, because we missed on lands, I don't think we can race this this Brazen Borrower. Because we get a 4 this turn. Next turn, if we make a land, we make a zombie. Even if we draw a fetch land, we make 2 zombies. Get to attack for 3. But then we take another 3 back. So we'd have to draw exactly a fetch land off of these 3 cards from the library. Which is pretty unlikely. We have lost one of our fetches already, so we only have 1 fetch left. So I'm just going to use this Reclaimer because it allows the Reclaimer to, if I do draw a fetch, it allows the Reclaimer to get up to a 3/4. And I think I might as well get Bog. It doesn't matter too much because all of my lands are going to be tapped. And I have the only one that's relevant. So we drew a port. And 2 more blanks. This choke's not achieving anything. So, it's pretty unfortunate. We make this. I didn't attack. I don't know why I didn't attack. I should have attacked, put them to 5. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't attack there. Because yeah, I'm winning the race if I attack. I guess I was set on trying to make a zombie to try and kill them in one hit, but that just doesn't make sense. So this was definitely a huge mistake. Because the Brazen Borrower can't block. So, yeah, this is a huge mistake. I should have definitely attacked with the Reclaimer. Oh no, because it's only a 1-2, that's why I can't attack. There we go. I figured it out. Current map figured it out. So not using it the turn earlier on in the game somewhat cost me the game. The opponent made an Ice Fang, which is then obviously lethal. But still potentially made quite a few mistakes in their game and could have played it a lot better. So going into game 3, we get to be on the play now, which is pretty important. I think it's definitely good for us. Makes the matchup a lot better. We have this hand. We do have a green source, we have Exploration, Sphere, Library, Tracker. There's a lot of stuff that we want. A lot of good stuff. Opponent also keeps 7, so we're going to go Grove into Exploration, which resolves. We'll make a port and pass. And then opponent making Relic. So here we have an interesting spot of could just jam Tracker, which is okay, but if we don't draw a land next turn, it's pretty bad for us. Could jam Sphere to try and slow our opponent down, but it also hurts us a reasonable amount. Or we could jam the Library to try and draw a bunch of cards to get out of, or get head on cards. So I think I decide to play Library. I'm not sure if this is correct. I think I'm supposed to play Sphere. Just to really stunt my opponent. Because I go Sphere, they then get to Cantrip next turn if they want to. Then I get to jam Library next turn. But they can't Teferi me. Yeah, I think I'm supposed to just jam Sphere here rather than Library. I guess if they have a Force, it's better to jam Library. Because I have a backup Library. Yeah, maybe it's just better to, yeah, I think it's better just to jam the Sphere in this spot. Because the Library's good, but it gives my opponent so much time as well. So my opponent Brazen Borrows the Library, which is unfortunate. We brick on a land, so now I feel like we have to just rejam the Library. Because we need to find lands, otherwise we're just not doing anything. Opponent brainstorms, which is fine. And plays a fetch. So here they can be representing like an end of turn Ice Fang Coatl. But we get to draw with this Library, which is good. We find Bog, Wasteland, Reclaimer. And at this point I'm pretty happy just taking 8 to keep both. Just to get us a bunch of cards. I'm going to jam this Tracker, because I want to try and get value with making some clues. And then our opponent here, I believe they have the Swords to Plowshares, which is a bit unfortunate. Got a bit punished. But we still have an extra land drop, so we can make this Wasteland and get rid of their Tundra. Which puts us in a decent spot, I think. We're pretty far ahead on mana. We have this Library in play, and we have a clue as well to try and get out from under the Library. Opponent's just redeveloping their mana. We draw a Thicket, a Sphere, and a Forest. So I think I slightly mess up here. I think I'm supposed to put the Thicket back on top, keep the Forest, go to 11, play the Forest, play the Sphere, and then play the second Sphere. But I don't think I did that. Yeah, I put the Sphere back, which is a mistake, I think. I think I'm supposed to just, if I can just jam 2 Spheres into play, I think I'm just so far ahead. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty big mistake. I think I'm supposed to just try and jam 2 Spheres. Even if they have the Force for one of them, it means I'm still resolving a Sphere, which is pretty huge. Slows them down a lot. So yeah, I think that's a pretty big mistake. Yeah, make the Forest, make the Reclaimer, Then I make a sphere, and I can either port them or cycle Thicket. So here my opponent plays an Ice Fang to draw a card. And then forces my sphere. So yeah, I got kind of punished here for leaving the sphere on top. Decide to port them, and they have a Swords to Plowshares. What do you think about a talent show where LSV coaches an English rapper to play MTG, all narrated by Sue Perkins? That sounds terrible. Why is LSV coaching an English rapper? What's the objective of this talent show? We've got it? Oh god. What? That sounds awful. Publicity for MTG? How much more publicity do you need than Mr. Beast? Just give Mr. Beast some more money. Or like, I don't know, give like Post Malone some money. Make him do something, like he did with Pokemon. Sue Perkins. Yeah, so we ported, and they had the swords, which then puts us in a pretty bad spot. And then they also had an Ice Fang to like further increase their clock, which puts us in a really bad spot. Because we're under so much pressure, and we can't really use this library anymore. We get to see 2 fresh cards with the library though, and we get to see Wasteland Choke. They only have 1 card in their hand at this point, so the likelihood this choke resolves is very high. So I think I need to preserve my life total and put back Sphere and Wasteland, draw the choke, and cast it, and then it resolves, which is very nice. And then just pass the turn. And my thought here is that I need to preserve my life total, but I can use this Thicket and this Clue to get out from under what's currently on the library. And I just need to find something to do. Punishing Fire will be very good. We still have 2 left in the deck, I believe. Yeah, we still have 2 Punishing Fires left in the deck. So if we find Punishing Fire, the game's probably over. They're trapped under this choke. End of turn, we get to port their Misty to force action. Oh no, sorry, we're going to draw a card. I forgot about that. But we have the option of porting their Misty to try and force action at some point. So the 2 fresh cards are Stage and Mox. Again, not great. We need to put 2 of these back. Play the Wasteland. And play the Sphere. Now we get to port and cycle. So we're going to port their Forest as the only land that untaps. Take another 2, go down to 7. And then we're going to cycle this Thicket, draw the card we know on top. So we draw the Mox, which is bad sequencing. I should have put these the other way around knowing I was going to cycle, so I could float the Mox still with the library. Which is definitely a mistake, because then I would have been able to keep land and tracker. But here I decided I just have to keep the tracker and play it, which I think is okay. My opponent fetches, and then they have a force. Pitching Jace, obviously they're never getting to Jace. We're going to port them again. Now they have an island, but they can't really do anything with the island. They could cast a cantrip, which is fine. Library reveals us Force of Vigor, and the new card is another Choke. Again, doesn't really accomplish much. Just going to port their island because it stays tapped under the Choke and pass. I'm keeping this in my hand in case I find Valakut Exploration now. I think this is a good spot to start keeping lands in my hand. It was good to play the Wasteland last turn because it meant I could cycle and port. But now I should just wait. Take another 2. I'm in real trouble here. Yeah, I'm going to copy the port. I think this is a mistake. I think I should have copied the Grove to give me more colored sources. But yeah, I'm in real trouble here. We only get one fresh card off this library. So we're going to draw off the library. Thank God we found Punishing Fire. This was the last possible turn that we could find Punishing Fire and it'd be good enough to keep us alive. But if we... It's a slight mistake, because if we had have used this to copy Grove, then we could have drawn it. Could have gone to 1, drawn it next turn, gone Punishing Fire, get it back Punishing Fire. But because of how we did this, it's just so timely to draw the Punishing Fire now. Like basically the last turn we had to draw it. Now we play the Mox because we need the extra red source. And we're going to Punishing Fire and it resolves, which is huge. I think this was a mistake. I think I should have... Again, if I had have made the double Grove, we would have been in so much of a better spot now. Because if my opponent had Surgical there, we're obviously super dead. So they attack for 1, that's fine, we get a 2. Put back the Force of Vigor and the Choke, just keep floating those on top. And then, because of the Sphere, I'm going to port them, so they can't... They're going to float mana, which is fine. I'm going to move phases, so now they can't force me, because of the Sphere. So I get to Punishing Fire the Ice Fang. Return the Punishing Fire. And then pass. I guess we get to play our land and port, which is decent. And our opponent just concedes. There was so much relief at this point. That Punishing Fire was just on time. Yeah, this is like close to an elimination match at this point, because I would have gone from 4-0 to 4-2. It would have meant my breakers would have been pretty bad to try and make the top 8, given that there'll only be like 1 or 2 people making it of X and 2. So this was a real stressful match. Even though I think this matchup is pretty good for us, for lands, this was very stressful. But we win this one, so now we're at 5-1 with 2 rounds to go. Basically have 2 winning ends because our breakers should be good enough to hold if we're getting it if we X2. Because of how the tournament's gone for us so far, we have the best breakers of the X ones. So